Hello and welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm Chris Lee. I'm joined by Billy Derrick and Luke Wyatt on our Wednesday Roundtable episode. We're part of the 440 Sports Network. This show and this channel presented by Anchor Impact. Billy, have at it to tell the folks about Anchor Impact and the work it is doing in NIL and how our listeners might be able to help.
Yeah, Commodore Nation, you can get closer to Vanderbilt athletics than ever before with Anchor Impact. They are the official NIL collective for Vanderbilt University. You can gain access to unmatched exclusive coverage and be part of a one-of-a-kind community. As a member, you gain exclusive privileges and benefits that offer deeper engagement with the student athletes, coaches, staff, and the entire Vanderbilt community. You have access to behind-the-scenes content, exclusive events, unique merchandise, and personalized experiences. You also become a catalyst for change, redefining the landscape of college athletics and showcasing the potential impact of NIL on student athletes' lives. Contribute now by logging on anchorimpact.com/register. That's anchorimpact.com/register.
All right. Today's show, and actually basketball season, is presented by the Wash House. Are you dreading laundry day? Is it stealing time to do the things you truly enjoy? Let the laundry professionals at the Wash House take care of that for you with 2 convenient locations in the greater Nashville area. Just drop off your dirty laundry, and our professional attendants can give you back the one thing you can never have enough of. That is your time. Within 24 hours, you can pick up your nicely folded, fresh, and clean laundry ready to be put away. Check them out at washhouseclean.com. Stop in today. Get your time back. Steve Andrews, a good friend of mine. This is a family business. They work hard. Big Vanderbilt supporter. If you have a need in the area of laundry, Steve is your guy. You enjoy getting to know him if you get to meet him. And again, they just do great work, and we're thankful for their role in helping us out here. This show also presented by our friends at the Murfreesboro Pure Milk Studio. It's a family-owned third-generation milk and ice cream distribution company located in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. A partnership began 50 years ago with Purity Dairy in Nashville to provide purity milk and ice cream to consumers in Middle Tennessee. They now serve Southern Kentucky, Northern Alabama, Chattanooga, North Georgia. Today, they supply grocery stores, convenience stores, others with Purity products, as well as Mayfield, Nestle, and Haagen-Dazs ice cream. For more information, visit their website and mpmci.com. Good folks, Vanderbilt alums. Boy, ice cream. We know about my love for ice cream, and they will get it to you. The Purity homemade vanilla, probably still my favorite in their brand of offerings as far as Purity goes. That goes with anything. You can do it. My son does, throw chocolate syrup in and make a shake out of it, or you can just eat it straight up like I do. Anyway.
I have a question for you, Chris. When you really go wild on ice cream, what do you go for?
I'm the homemade vanilla. I was not a vanilla guy growing up, but you taste buds change. I think a good, not just vanilla, but a good homemade vanilla. It just tastes different.
Yeah.
Vanilla bean, those things are fine, but homemade vanilla is right up my alley. And I'll put some hot fudge on it, maybe do it with the brownie. Maybe some Cool Whip or whipped cream and sprinkles occasionally. So it just depends on what's on hand and how much I've been running.
Chris, I picture at y'all's house, y'all have like a very, very like antiquated milkshake machine where like how do you guys just have a blender? I feel like y'all have like some ice cream setup up in the kitchen with how much you guys love it.
What's that?
The old stainless steel kind of milkshake machine, remember?
Yeah.
We don't. But
the Christmas
my wife
gift down the road.
This earmuffs, so the ideas are coming. There might be something that just shows up on her doorstep from Amazon. I don't know how it got here. That could do that, but currently it's a blender. That's how we roll. But I think we might need to get the operation a little more advanced now that you bring it up.
Love it.
All right. Anything that keeps us from talking basketball, right? That's kind of where we are. Billy, I wasn't in the gym. You were. Look, here's the state of things. We know what happened Saturday. It wasn't really the score was, to me, was secondary. Vanderbilt's heading to Auburn tonight. I'm trying to find the line on it. The computers have it low 20s, which is just, yeah, I mean, that's the day Vanderbilt's a 20-point underdog to Auburn in basketball is just another data point in the bizarre world in which we're now witnessing. Billy, I don't know. But Luke, were you there at the game?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I watched from TV. Billy, I'll just let you start with your thoughts on things.
Yeah, it was as bad as it sounded on TV, because I went back and watched some of the highlights, and it kind of reaffirmed how loud it really was in there on the Tennessee side of things. They opened the gates at 4:00. They usually open the gates about an hour and a half before tip off. They didn't open the gates until a little after 4. Game tipped off at 5. I don't know if that was an effort to, I don't know what that was, but they usually open an hour and a half. So even with a later gate open, Tennessee fans got in there and they were fired up. They were ready to go. And you could tell the Vanderbilt fans that were there were not, they weren't even really looking. You heard the boos for Coach Stack. You heard some boos. Even when Candace Lee walked out, I mean, it was ugly. And it was something I didn't like. We talked about it, or you guys talked about it. I wasn't on last week, but and what you anticipate, you can anticipate something, but as soon as it happens, there's a feeling in you where you kind of, just personally, man, you kind of go, man, this shouldn't be happening. This should not have gotten to this level. And it's really, I talked to a lot of Tennessee people, and they said the same thing. The SEC wants Vanderbilt to be competitive, and with things like this that keep happening, optically, whatever, like you said, Chris, the product isn't even the story. The story is Tennessee fans taking over a gym that is beloved to Vanderbilt fans, but it doesn't seem like it is anymore. And so, the fans have spoken. Tennessee fans certainly spoke. And it is just sad we're not even talking about the product. Joey and I hinted at that. It was fun to honestly see Dalton connect. The kid, he's unreal. But Luke, it's just, this shouldn't be happening.
No, and we've seen it gradually get worse and worse. I talked about last year when Vanderbilt won the game, and it was still, that kind of got lost last year, that it was a 50-50 crowd. So now this year it's probably I would guess 9,000 Tennessee and maybe 4,000 Vanderbilt, because you had 1,500 or so students and the other 3,500 Vandy fans that come. But yeah, it's embarrassing. Any adjective you want to take to describe it. The people that are in charge don't care, obviously. Jerry Stackhouse made a comment to Kevin Ingram and Tim Thompson that it was a great atmosphere. So that tells you where his mind is. It's just, it needs to be, when the old chalkboard years ago used to be, you need to clap the erasers and wet down the chalkboard and wipe it clean. That's what needs to happen.
Look, I was on an island 4 years ago with why this wouldn't work. I knew it wouldn't work because there was a lot of stuff I knew that I've never gone public with, and I've started to come out with a little bit here and there. But sometimes you got to keep your mouth shut for a lot of reasons. Not the least of which is protecting the people who give you what you do. I think the podcast, and I know people get upset sometimes that it's a little cryptic, and I realize you can use that to shield yourself from having to prove something. In other words, I can apply something about Billy that's bad and not come out and say it. And this is all, for example, I don't have anything bad to say about Billy, but point is that there's a game that people play. Well, I could say, I could tell you stuff about Billy Derrick, but I just can't say that and leave an impression that Billy has got some kind of sinister side to him and hide behind that as a defense. So I get it. I will just tell you this. I've always been honest with people. I've been wrong about stuff at times, but there's never been a day that I've come to the mic or come to the site and I've been dishonest. Luke, you know the funnel of stuff that goes into my ears the last few years, and how many dozens of conversations have we had where I've said, Luke, this is what I know to be true. This is why I can't say it because I got to protect this, or for just reasons of stuff gets turned against you. But I've got receipts here. You can go back to 4 years ago where I knew all the reasons this would not work. Sometimes you just have to kind of let things play out and let people see it for themselves. And I think you're seeing it for yourself now.
Well, I guess the thing I don't understand, and I know the response will be, how can anyone defend what's going on over there? I've heard people try to defend it. I don't get that. How in the world can you defend allowing a coach to say some of the things he's said, and then the product to be so poor? You watch what Miles Studi did last night to beat Tennessee. Now, I understand Studi was a flashpoint where, you either liked him or you didn't like him and that. But obviously, if you had Studi and Jordan Wright and Quentin Malloy-Brown, I think this team would be better. I don't know how much better, but when you replace them with Taylor and Kamateros and whoever I'm forgetting, that just shows me he doesn't know how to construct a roster.
Yeah.
Luke, go ahead, Billy. I'm sorry.
I was just going to add, we've talked ad nauseum about that, and to already kind of be moving past a lot of the things we've talked about, it, like you said, similar to football, we're trying to find new things. And the new thing is, the man at the top now. Why has this gone so wrong? And Luke, you mentioned it. We talked about the player retention. But somebody told me this last week, talking about Stackhouse and, what this looks like for the program for the future. And, the fact that there hasn't been anything publicly from the administration could be a good thing. But, it could also be, where is something, the fans need something, whether it is, a statement on how you posted it to Twitter, wherever it is. I think the fans are kind of sitting here saying, okay, we want something. We want some answers. But the fact that, you haven't gotten it, I guess you could look at it as a good thing. But Chris, that at the end of the day might even be grasping for straws, and you got to wait till the end of the season.
Look, I'm going to back up several steps, and you're going to say, people listening are going to say, well, how is this relevant to anything? The great Kirkland takeover of media relations in 2020. At the time, that blindsided everybody on campus. Nobody knew what it was about. I mean, I say blindsided. I talked to people that have been in the middle of it, in the middle of meetings, and they all said, hey, look, you could kind of see this coming the day somebody gave permission and signed off to let this happen. And Malcolm Turner had said no to it. And Candace Lee was officially on the job for, 3-4 months, and it happened. And nobody knew what that was at the time. I had some suspicions what that was about. Messaging and control are at the center of all this. And the school, and I know people don't believe this, but look at how the results have played out. Look at the records. Look at the hows, wins, whys, wheres, and even the press releases. The school will eventually tell you what its priorities are by what it promotes, and by the losing that it allows to fester, the lack of crowds and Memorial. I'm at the point where if you're paying attention, I don't have to tell you anything. But I think what happened with media relations and that getting all sucked inside of Kirkland and reorganized and people being let go, the school decided it was going to take a greater, and I think some of it was probably well-intentioned, but I think the messaging component is the biggest thing here. I think the school is way more concerned about the messaging. And I don't think the messaging is necessarily aimed towards the people that are in the building. I could go on for a while, but I think people have underrated that as a component. I think right now we're in an era, and you see it, where everybody who's been there a while knows how to talk around things and talk through things and direct attention away. All the talk that's coming out of there is either, hey, look at our leadership, how great is this? And I think you got a coach who's lived and learned under it. I think he knows now, okay, I can just kind of deflect something over here. I can say, hey, we can go get 5 stars. And I think this is a place where Vanderbilt is set up to let the talking do the talk and not let the results do the talk. And it's intentional. It's been that way for a long time. I think a lot of fans have kind of swallowed it without a lot of critical analysis. And I think that explains a lot where we are, because you got a coach, you can look at his post game and he's just saying ridiculous things like, this is a great atmosphere. No, it wasn't a great atmosphere. But they have been able to talk their way around things for so long. And the way that they are able to control the message, and you can do that with sticks and you can do that with carrots, and they know how to do both. I really think their priority is what they put in front of you. And again, you can say what you want about it, but the scoreboard tells you all you need to know.
I'm going to simplify what all you just said, Chris, by this. I'm a simple man. Back during Christmas, I went shopping for my wife at Green Hills Mall, and they have that beautiful tree with all those beautiful presents wrapped underneath the tree. Well, that's what Vanderbilt does. They wrap up a beautiful gift, and the outside, the packaging looks great, and you open it up, and it's an empty box. And that's where they're at right now. Obviously, sans Tim Corbin and some Olympic sports. But the football and basketball, men's basketball and football, right now, they got to come with something. It's obvious. I mean, it's deteriorated to as bad as it can get, I think. Now, Kentucky may be a little worse, but probably not. It'll probably be the same thing, 9-4, I would guess the crowd will be. But it'll be the same thing. You'll be listening to Go Big Blue. And again, I go back to the same thing I've always said. It ain't about us. It ain't about anything but those kids to me. And that's what I hate. That's the part that I hate more than anything, having to watch those kids play. Everybody else gets 9 home games and 9 away games. Vanderbilt gets 6 home games that are mostly neutral floor, and then they have to play 12 on the road, so to speak.
Look, I'll go one step further and simplify everything you just said in one really short clip. Nobody knows how to sell the emperor's clothes like Vanderbilt.
Yep, that's good.
Yeah, and it's so clear right now that we are living in a different reality than they are. Yes. The way we think, covering Vanderbilt, Luke, as long as you've been there, as basically an encyclopedia of information, and the fans, the way we think about them is not the way they think about Vanderbilt athletics and how it should be operated. And that has become so clear. I mean, Chris, I'm sure it's been clear to y'all for a while, a lot longer than it has for me, but that is something that has just, I mean, there are 2 alternate universes here, and we're living in one of them. They're living in the other.
Billy, I'm going to go a step further. And then I think we're just going to get to the mailbag. You nailed it with everything. I keep trying to tell people this in podcasts and the board. Take whatever you think about athletics and throw it out and how things should run. And look, at some point, maybe, but that's just not how it works. You've got to remove your own goggles through which you see the world and look at what's in front of you and make your own interpretation. Throw out everything that you think would apply anywhere else. Put it in the trash can and just look at what happens. And just, I don't even have to tell you more other than what's in front of you. That's enough to let you know. And I will say one more thing. I think all this talk about a coaching search is premature. I mean, sure, that there could be stuff going on behind the scenes. I'm not sitting here saying to you, I know for a fact they're not planning to make a change. I'm just saying I think the number of people that would know that are very small, and that's probably not getting leaked out to the media until Vanderbilt is making a change. I would also tell you, for everybody excited about a coaching search, I don't know. I think I'm starting to get enough hints about what might be coming if they were to do it, that I think they could lock themselves into another bad search with a bad outcome, and then you're stuck with the next guy for 5 more years. So this might be a be careful what you wish for scenario that could play out even if they do make a change. I could be wrong about that. There could be some world where sanity and common sense and looking at it like the fans listening to this prevails. But I mean, maybe there's a chance there's enough pressure on it, but you leave the machine to its own devices over there, and they always go in a certain direction. And that may not be what you think I'm saying. That can mean a lot of things, but I would not take anything for granted for over the next 2 months about what may or may not be coming with men's basketball.
Well, and whether this is good or bad for the fans, from the fans' perspective, Chris, I think you mentioned this on the board. Jerry Stackhouse has some fight. You know, he was a very successful player. You know, he knows how to win, but he has realized that with this group, it's tough. I mean, you know, you've got 2 to 3 guys that you can really rely on every night. But I think the one thing here to watch, Chris, is, you know, how much fight do they have? They, as in the players, right? And this is going to be up to the players, you know. And so I think that could affect this decision. I mean, say they win, say they go on a little run here and win 4, 5, 6 games in the conference. That could change some things. So this is going to be interesting. But for the opponents, like tonight, Auburn cannot afford a loss to Vanderbilt. So the opponents now, especially in the SEC, how tight the SEC is, you got to think about that too. You cannot afford a loss to this Vandy team. You know, if say Tennessee would have lost, that's a whole seed. You know, maybe even 2. So you got to look at the opponents and how they will not want to lose to Vanderbilt.
Hey, a huge positive. We moved up to 188 in KenPom.
Moving on up.
Here we go.
All right, let's just do the mailbag. While you get that ready, the mailbag is sponsored by Sutherland & Belk, a family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one has been hurt in an accident, give Taylor or Russell a call, 615-846-6200. See what your rights are and if they can help. The longest-running sponsors of the podcast. They are the only ones that have been with us since the very beginning. Wonderful human beings. Should you have a need, and I hope you don't, they are the people to contact. Guest line presented by John Levin and the Maynard Nexus Government Contracts Group. Maynard Nexus advises government contractors on all aspects of their needs with a proud focus on matching legal solutions to business needs. They've even got their very own Chris Lee. He's probably better at his job than I am at mine. Give them a look if you have a need for such things. And again, we thank them for being a sponsor of our show. All right, Billy, I think we had a couple of dozen mailbag questions. I'm pretty sure we're not going to get to all of them, but I'll let you pick some of the more pertinent ones.
All right, I want to get to this one. This was the first one, and I did get clarification on this. Lobel asking where or when the new football weight room will be built, which is a good question. Any specific details on size and extra features? Luke, I don't know if you've heard anything. I got clarification that they haven't released anything publicly yet. So I don't know if that means they don't know yet, which I don't understand why that would be the case. But yeah, so I wanted to get to that question there. Let's see here. Okay, it's a good one on football, and I think you guys might have touched on it last week. VU Titans, whose idea was it to bring Jerry Kill in? Was it Clark Lee or somebody else? You know, I would imagine it was Clark. And I think we have talked about that and you know, the impact that could have on the team. And then he also asks, does Tim Beck and Jerry Kill have complete control of everything on offense? I would say yes to that. Luke, we've talked about that. And I think that's a good thing.
You've covered it. That's correct on all three factors.
How did he connect with Jerry Kill, Luke? You probably have more background. And by the way, I did get a text from somebody last night. It's been it's Jerry Kill's offense from what I'm told.
Yeah. No, I think, Chris, it was more of the connection to Tim Beck.
Okay.
Jerry Kill.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Okay. J2M, where is rock bottom for this athletic department? I think we have kept we've kept rediscovering. We continue to rediscover kind of a new rock bottom. That honestly, Chris, might be a good question. I mean,
look, you tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think the athletic department's. I don't think its driving motivation is to win games. I think it is to keep the people who have the power in charge of the power, and I think everything falls in line from there. Is that too hard?
No, it's about right. I think it's winning, but winning the way you want to try to put a narrative out there. You know, Tim Corbin does his own thing, and he's been there now 22 years or 23 years, whatever it is. And we all know why Tim is successful is because he separated himself from what the McGugan way of doing things is. And he took no for, and then he started winning early on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're not going to see any change until the mindset has changed in that athletic department and that university. Yeah. There's times when I go back and forth, Chris and Billy, who to blame. And, I talked about that Spider-Man thing you brought up. Is it the university? Do we blame the university for doing what they're doing, or is it just blame athletics and athletics only?
I'm gonna add something there. Somebody knows him really well. Said everything over there is set up to where everybody avoids specific accountability. That's why you hear people talking in vague terms. That's why it's set up to where everybody can just sort of, and these are my words, live to fight another day without anybody putting a rope around their own neck. And I think that more than anything explains what we're looking at. There's more here I had to add, but it's escaped me for the moment.
Yeah. Go ahead, Luke.
Go ahead, Billy.
I was just going to add, with all the construction going on, whether it's optics, recruiting, the effect on recruiting, getting portal kids. I mean, just walking on Vanderbilt's campus and looking around, kind of going, what is this going to look like? What's going on here? It's been like this now for almost 2 years. I started thinking about that the other day and saying, okay, maybe it doesn't change a ton when everything is done, but just the way it feels. I mean, I feel for a lot of the student athletes, because their path to the facility might be different right now than it has been. I think about that, Luke, and it kind of makes me think, I wonder if that has had an effect on the performance and just overall, like the feel of it. And maybe this changes, maybe it doesn't when everything's done, but I thought about that the other day.
Yeah. It's
Luke, go ahead.
It's inconvenient for everybody right now. And look, I don't have a problem with that. My fat butt needs to walk a little more. So I don't have a problem with that. But you're right, for the athlete standpoint, they have to look at that all the time when they're coming over there. But, the only criticism I have of that is it seems like to me, and I'm no expert and I'm no engineer, but it seems like it's taking way too long to do this.
Look, the other part of what I was going to add is when I've had conversations of people who sit in rooms when decisions are being made and have been made, and this has been going on for a long time. And we saw this with, Zeppos and David Williams kept playing the point the finger game forever, and he never could pinpoint whose fault anything was, and it was believable on both accounts. But the thing that you come down to is you'll talk to them and they'll say, well, we just can't do it like that here because we don't do it like that here. And we can't do it like that here. I'm like, so what you're telling me, you're constantly pointing the finger back at yourself, is if there's some kind of entity that's got control of you that you have that you don't have. It's the weirdest thing. Their ability to point and say, well, we can't do things like this because we can't do things like this. Like, does nobody have a hand on the steering wheel? Like, are you all victimless in this? Can nobody have any control over results? Or, I mean, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. The way that they can keep, oh, you can't do this, but what you're really doing is you're saying we can't do it because we can't do it. Well, who is we? It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, and that's why this thing keeps getting stuck where it is.
I love to give these silly examples, and I'll give you another one, Chris and Billy. It's like if you have a lineup with your kids, say you got 6 kids, and they've done something wrong at the house, and you don't know who did it. And you say, okay, all y'all are getting in trouble unless one of you steps forward. Well, at Vanderbilt, everybody takes one step back.
Yeah.
Everybody gets in trouble. All right, here's a decent one here from Jerry Lawless 3. With the history you guys have being within and around the department, I'm fascinated by the stories you could tell. What do we have to do for a Chris and Luke tell-all spectacular? NDAs, live in-person show with your yonder pouches. I don't even know what that last part is, but what do you think? Tell-all spectacular, guys. As if you haven't told it all.
I can tell
we haven't.
Yeah. I mean, we've told a lot, but we're not still hadn't scratched the surface of what I know.
The art of this is knowing what to say and when to say it and how to say it and what to hold back. And there's a lot we've held back. But I just, Luke, you and I have had this conversation how many dozen times? What do we do with this? What do we do with this information that I got today or you got today or whatever?
I mean, we've been doing it for 5 years at least.
Yes.
So,
and how much have we come out with? What percentage would you put on it?
I mean, I can tell you what I know and what you know. Maybe you have a different percentage. From my standpoint, I've probably come out with 60 to 70% of what I know.
Okay.
To be fact.
Yeah.
Usually probably lower than that or higher than that, however you want to look at it.
Lower.
You know, because if you do come out with some of the stuff, you're portrayed as either a racist or you're biased, or I don't know.
Okay, here is a good one here. Back to basketball from BMR 17. How can an AD or person of power at Vanderbilt truly watch Ole Miss and South Carolina be 18-3 with big crowds and quick turnarounds in one off season and not be ticked off that we're the second worst Power 5 team in America? Sorry, DePaul. I'll say to that, like you said earlier, Chris, we don't know what Candace Story Lee is thinking right now. Now, the fans would love to think. I mean, if there was a truth serum right now, and we found out that Candace Story Lee is fed up and she's convinced and she has mentally made the decision that she's making a change, that would be reassuring. But we're not getting that. There hasn't been a public statement. There hasn't been anything. Like you said earlier, Chris, she could have already made that decision mentally. She could have already had at least started some of these conversations. And the feeling around, like Jerry Stackhouse after the game after several games actually, has started to admit more things that he hasn't admitted in the past, at least in this season. He said, listen, we lost a lot after last year. And kind of, the feeling in there, Joe and I have talked about it, the tone has shifted a little bit. But Chris, we can't really answer. I mean, we don't know. Are they ticked off? We don't know. I mean, it doesn't feel like it, of course, because you haven't had anything publicly, but I mean, I don't know that maybe they are. Let's see here.
Body language and public statements have not tracked with that feeling.
All right. Denver Door. Any rumblings from sources on how the administration took the UT loss last week? More upset with the direction of the program or still indifferent? I would say still indifferent. I mean, we haven't gotten anything.
There should be a statement from our athletic director about we're sorry. We apologize to the fans that did come. We apologize to the fans that feel like they can't come anymore and support this, and we're going to do something about it. But that's not going to happen.
Let's see here. NBA Door. How's our golf program looking? How many of our guys are going pro after the season? That's a good question. There's a couple of guys that have gone not pro, but there was a guy from Tennessee that just signed with Live. There's a guy at Alabama who's about 20 years old, I think, and just won big tournament, a pro tournament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sargent is gonna. Sargent, he's gonna. I mean, he is a pro already. I think he's gonna have a decision to make because Live is gonna come after him with some money. Does he want to be in the PGA Tour or Live? So I think that's gonna be something to watch. But that's a facility that's being built out at their facility. It's gonna be beautiful. And they're going to be really good. I mean, you're talking about golf now, guys, with baseball as a team that's going to be in the running for a national title every year now. I can't get into detail, but yeah, I feel like we're talking about that every spring. Let's see here, Door Fan 6. When is the episode that you've been teasing about the athletic department? I think Chris, did we talk about that before we recorded? Potentially in March, maybe.
I don't know. I've been batting around a State of the Union, but I don't know what we could say that we have. No, look, I can tell you. You've seen we cover 4 programs. The one that runs on its own without influence is chumming along quite nicely. Chumming along. I don't know if that's even a phrase. Humming along is what I meant to say. Churning along. Humming, churning, whatever. It's doing its thing, and I think they'll be fine. The other 3, I think, speak for themselves. I think that you have seen football in the last 4 years hit a new low. That as bad as it's been, you've never seen a team that didn't forfeit, that went winless and also didn't finish the season because there weren't enough players left. Same thing happened in basketball. A winless in the conference, team quit because morale was awful. And then now men's basketball, which I think is even this bad, was better than probably both those. That's the state of things. I don't know what more I could say. I mean, I've debated getting on here and dissecting it, but we'd all end at the same point. At some point, you say the thing enough, and people tune you out. And that's just kind of where I am. I don't. It's depressing to watch this whole thing. It's depressing to watch people that are held the victim of a system that is designed to keep a very select few people in control of it all. And part of my language, the hell with everybody else. That includes your players. That includes your coaches, the people that you're supposed to serve. I mean, if I could give you 60 seconds in a nutshell, that's it. And I don't know. Anything else that you could add at that point is just either painting around the edges or if you want to take the pessimistic point of view, it's piling on.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. It's just sad, really. I mean, that's what I'll add. All right, DFW Mark. Gun to your head, is Stackhouse back next year? And will you have a better answer in 4 weeks? I think Luke and I have said no. Chris, could you have a better answer in 4 weeks?
Too early. Well, yeah, in 4 weeks maybe. I keep telling people they don't hear it. I think right now is premature to make a judgment. I think we're at least 2 to 3 weeks out from having a better. And I don't know that we'll have a sense. I mean, the Mason thing, when that news came out, now there was talk before the season they were going to move on from him. I kind of dismissed it because they say all kinds of stuff to all kinds of people, and the message can change. From Luke, they could tell you one thing, and Billy, when you're in the room and your lean is a different way, they'll tell you the opposite, and that's why it's hard to trust what is said. They fired Mason after the season. What'll happen is nobody will probably know it's coming, and it'll get leaked to a national person, and then we'll all scramble to react or, publish our pre-written stories with the quote or two or a detail and add them in and then hit go. That's probably how it's going to happen.
I have a question that I want to pose to keep him. Okay, let's just say they decided to keep him. What is the defense in keeping him?
Look, they don't need a defense.
No, I'm just asking because they're going to have to make a statement at the end whether they're keeping him or not. And when they come out and they're questioned, okay, what was the decision to fire keep Jerry? What are they going to say?
If they engage on our terms, it's going to be we were young and we had guys hurt, and he was coach of the year last year. Case closed.
Okay.
And they would have. I mean, I think, Chris. I mean, you got to believe, right? They've got to get to at least 4 wins for them to consider keeping him. I mean, I just don't see them like Luke. That could be part of it too. They
Billy, you're making assumptions. You're making assumptions, and you might be right, but you just can't go there with them. I think I've used this adage before. I have somebody that's very close to me that's an addict, and thank God that situation is finally resolving itself. Nobody in my immediate house. I'll just leave it at that. I saw things that happened for years, and you're like, surely that's the bottom. Surely that's the bottom. Now we weren't even close to the bottom, and I think if you're trying to size Vanderbilt up, and again, don't take my word for it. Look at what's in front of you. Look at the women's basketball thing. They were going to go to year 6 with Stephanie Wyatt. That was as bad as it could get, on court, off court. I mean, God only knows what you would find if you went digging into that thing.
But they did.
So, but you know what got it? And I think this is what it's going to be. I think you're most likely, if Jerry Stackhouse gets fired, I don't think winning and losing is going to be the driver. I think it's either he's going to really tick somebody off. And I do think that he may lay the groundwork with some of that already. I do not think that that's pointing the finger at the administration for we can't get transfers in. I would bet you money. I don't know, but I would bet you money that did not go over well. The other thing is the constant roster churn of losing players, and that's what got Stephanie Wyatt done in the end. The product was beyond miserable. The kids were beyond miserable, but until players left, that is what I'm told did her in. Now, I think what you could see happen is they could ride with Jerry's our guy and point the finger at all the reasons we went through before, and then you could see 3 or 4 kids leave, hit the portal, and that might be when they hit the button. Is if you got guys leaving, because the churn of players under him is pretty incredible.
All right, let's go back to football real quick. I think you guys might have touched on this last week. What's the buzz out of the new strength and conditioning program? What has changed from the old program? I got a text from somebody pretty close to the program, said Steiner is legit. He's been really impressive. Again, I'm looking forward to talking to him, just, talking to all the coaches, all the new coaches, really. But, these guys, I had somebody, I saw Quincy Skinner's Instagram story. He said something about, man, that was the hardest workout I've ever been through. So, yeah, all good things. And it's early, but I think, Luke, that's one of the bigger things Clark has to get perfect. I mean, you got to have, that has to be a strength of your program. And I think they're getting there.
Well, I mentioned it last week. Someone asked a similar question, and they're back to meat and potatoes. Hard work. There's no substitute for hard work. Getting in there early, getting your work done. Make sure your workouts are monitored the way they should be. Just holding everybody accountable, just like anything else in life. If you go to work and the boss is over in the corner not paying any attention to you, you're gonna work a little bit, sit down a little bit, get on your phone a little bit. But if he's standing there right over top of you, making sure you get your work done, then you go to class. That's what you got to have. And I think they've done that. And that's the most important hire. There's no question. It's more important than changing the offense and changing the philosophy.
Yeah,
Billy, I'll go a little further. I think they've made 4 really good pivots in the offseason. I think having Clark kind of lead it, and he'll have help with that. I think I just didn't see Nick Howell as a plus. I think offensively letting Kill and the New Mexico State guys run it, changing philosophy to something that can win was a nice step. I think strength and conditioning was a step in the right direction. And I think getting serious about NIL was a step in the right direction. Now, look, I'm concerned that the talent is still nowhere near where it needs to be, but at least they recognize where some things need to go and have gone in that direction. So,
all right, here's a really important question from Jerry Lawless again. Given the amount of disappointment from both football and basketball, what sort of expectations should fans have heading into baseball? And Chris, we've talked about this. The last 2 years have ended in regional losses. That hasn't happened very often under Tim Corbin, and home regional losses hasn't happened very often either. And that happened last year. Now they won an SEC title and they were ranked all year. I think they finished 14th, preseason number 7. They should still be high. This is Tim Corbin's program. But I think fans are just really curious, Chris, offensively, can they hold up their end of the bargain? Now the excitement, for basketball and football, the fact that they're so down, that creates, fans have started thinking about baseball long before now. I think after the Presbyterian loss, it was all right. How we looking? How's baseball? But yeah, Chris, excitement. But I will say the star power. With Vanderbilt, you used to saying at least 1 or 2 guys. They've got Bradfield, Rocker, and Leiter. They've got Austin Martin, Blade, and this pitcher. I don't know that like Carter Holton, is he a star? He's got big year to prove it. A lot of prove it year opportunities for these guys, and a ton of depth. And that's a good problem to have. But again, overall, Chris, Tim Corbin's still there. You ought to be excited.
I think this, and I listened to Tim's talk with you guys yesterday. I think, Billy, you were there.
Yeah, me and Joey. Yep.
This team, and he kind of hinted at this. We have more depth than I can remember offensively. Now, we've always had good pitching staff, seem to be, and depth there. But we now have guys fighting to get on the field. And I think that's something in the past. You knew who the 9 guys in the lineup were going to be, including the DH. There's 3 or 4 positions that could go either way. And to keep everybody happy, and like he said, to be a good teammate and play with your toys and all that, that's going to be the question. You got to keep the clubhouse happy. And there's about 15 guys that could see playing time on the offensive side. And that's exciting.
It's funny. I was looking at D1 baseball yesterday, which is my go-to place for baseball stuff. And I don't ever remember this happening. They named 3 All-American teams, and they put like 6 or 7 pitchers on all those teams, and they give you a lineup, and they give you 2. I don't think Vanderbilt had a single guy on there unless I missed something.
No,
I don't ever remember that happening. And I keep thinking this feels a little bit like 2019, where 2018 they were kind of down, but they had a lot of experience. And I think they were preseason number 1 then, because everybody said, all right, this just feels like a year where it's going to come. But that team had a J.J. Blade. It had an Austin Martin. It had Kumar Rocker. We didn't know he was going to be Kumar Rocker yet. And that's kind of how it went. The star power led. They don't have that. Could I see it? I could see Andrew DeCanich stepping up and maybe being that guy. I could see – I don't know that – I don't see a hitter rising to the level of Martin and Blade, but I could see them having a really deep lineup of a lot of good hitters. And as you mentioned, I think they got freshmen waiting in the wings to hit the power thing. Now, this just occurred to me, Billy, as you were reading through the question and giving me your answer. I don't know if you could find the preseason All-American teams for 2014, but I don't know that Vanderbilt had a ton of – they had star power, of course. Everybody knew Walker Buehler was good. Everybody knew Carson Fulmer was good. People that were close to it suspected Dansby Swanson would be good. But nobody was talking about any of those guys, I think, on an all – now, Fulmer might have made somebody's preseason All-American team, but, Fulmer was their closer through half the season. And so my point being, and that was a different situation. That was a team that was young and not a team that was old. There's all kinds of mixed signals around this. I think they're going to be good. Can I give you a scenario where they're the last team standing? Yeah. Can I give you a scenario where this looks a lot like last year? I can also give you that.
Yeah, and last year, Chris, remember in 2018, they lost in that Super at home to Mississippi State. And that next season, they end up beating Mississippi State in Omaha en route to the national title. So I think you could see last year prove to be really important for this year. And you have a lot of those guys back from last year that went through. I mean, that regional loss had to be awful. I mean, I can't imagine with that delay and everything. So they can, and the freshmen coming in, there's some freshmen that are going to play. Cam Kojal is a good player. He could get some time at second. Ethan McIlvain was compared to Carson Fulmer by Tim Corbin. RJ Austin, I think, will have a breakout season. So we got plenty of time to talk baseball. But, yeah, Chris, I'm with you. I could see them having a year like last year, but I could also see them in Omaha. And we're going to see, Chris, in today's day of college baseball, you're looking at teams like LSU, Tennessee. Arkansas is more like Vandy still, where they pitch. They don't hit for a ton of power. Wake Forest, just uber talented teams that dominated in the portal, right? Yeah. LSU, Tennessee, Wake, Arkansas and Vandy are not huge portal teams. Van Horn and Corbin are not the biggest fans of the portal, but Vanderbilt used it a little bit, and they think they used it for their need. So that'll be interesting. Can teams like Vandy and Arkansas, and even Virginia, some of those old traditional powers, from, I say old, 10 years ago or so, can their style still win? That's what I'll like. Can Vanderbilt, win with pitching and defense? That's what I'm excited to see this year. So baseball almost 2 weeks away. FAU not next weekend, but the next. Okay, let's keep rolling. Let's see here. Okay, Go Doors 94. It's my view that Stackhouse, I know we're bouncing around here. It's my view that Stackhouse hasn't been recruiting at a high enough level to be successful here. What do you attribute this to? Is it lack of effort? Is it inability to identify the right players? Does he not connect or relate with the players and the recruits? Is it a staff issue? Anybody care to comment? No comment.
That was a lot.
If only somebody would have laid out all the reasons this wouldn't work 4 years ago.
Yeah, I'll go back
and got killed for it. And here we are.
Yeah. No, credit to you, Chris. You were right about everything.
Can you let my wife hear that, please? Can we clip that and just maybe make that my ringtone on my phone? That might work.
Yeah, I think you guys know our answers to that. Okay, here's a good one. Papa Hick 4VU. How likely is it, in your opinion, that JRT returns next season? That's a good question, because I think if there's a new coach, that new coach needs to look at that film and say, I need to keep this kid. I mean, he's got potential. It's really just been flashes, but I mean, he's got real potential, I think. And then, high school wise, I think Tyler Tanner, from the kid from Brentwood Academy who had 51 points last night, is a guy you probably should keep. But yeah, I don't know. It's like I said, it's hard to answer that right now. Let's see. Is the prognosis for Colin Smith to be ready at the start of next season, or will it be longer than that? I would think he'd be ready for next season. I don't think it might be a Joey Dwyer question there.
Yeah.
Billy, I'll add something. Those are tough. I mean, I don't know how much you got. Well, I know, Luke, you're bright. Remember Mike Soroka, all-star pitcher, I think made all-star game at 22, up-and-coming guy. He tears his Achilles in 2020. I don't remember if he was warming up for a start or what. That guy just now, I think, came back last year. I think the Braves traded him. look, you got to do a lot of work with your legs and pushing off. I
Mm-hmm.
get it. I'm not saying it's completely different, but basketball, you're running, you're jumping, you're doing all those things. And I don't know the severity of that compared to that, but like, I would think your Achilles would be more, what's the word I'm looking for? I would think it'd be a bigger obstacle to come back in basketball than it was in baseball. And so I'm just, and I hope I'm wrong about that. I sincerely wish Colin Smith the best. I hope this time next year he's back and he's giving Vanderbilt 20 and 10 a night. But I'm just, after what I saw with Soroka, I'm concerned.
Yeah.
All right, got one more, and I think it's a good one. RM Spitzer, 74. How much of the quarterback mismanagement and overall poor offensive performance last year do you think was on Lynch versus Lee? And do you think things will be better or different with the new OC and Coach Kill involved? I think Clark would take, like, if you ask Clark, he would say he made some mistakes offensively in terms of managing the quarterbacks last year. Whether it's quarterback specific or just overall offensive, like Clark didn't do what it took as a head coach last year offensively, which is why, and Luke, we've talked about this, you're seeing him kind of washing his hands offensively. That takes a lot for a head coach to do that and admit that, listen, I don't need to be involved offensively. And Clark has taken that step. It's got to be different. I mean, last year you went 2-10. How different will it be? That's the question. You brought in Jerry Kill, Tim Beck, Diego Pavia, Blaze Berlowitz. You brought in the two best quarterbacks on New Mexico State last year. You brought in their offensive masterminds. So it's going to be different. Again, can that get them over the edge? You could argue Clark Lee's tenure is kind of on the table here in the hands of New Mexico State, and the coaches that led them to a 10-win season last year. And I do think, Luke, it's a strategic move. They got a lot out of that New Mexico State team with, let's face it, not a ton of talent. I mean, Pavia's a good player, but, I don't know that Pavia is a Power 5 quarterback. Now, again, I could be wrong. We could see Diego Pavia lead them to some success this year, but Luke, it's got to be different, or else, this is going to be a tough end of the tenure.
I talked to a lot of kids that were former players on Franklin's teams and Mason's Bowl teams, and even back to some of the teams when Cutler played. One of the things they kept saying about this team in the last couple of years has been a toughness, that they don't see anybody with any edge and leadership and that type of thing. That's where I think we're going to be a lot better. When you take a kid like Pavia, who was a wrestler in high school, tough-minded kid, came from a tough situation, that's the type of kid you like as a leader.
Yeah.
Jay Cutler was a leader for Vanderbilt when he played. Jay's dad was a state trooper. He didn't grow up with a silver spoon in his mouth. And I just feel like they're leaning toward getting – and in fact, some of the transfers are this way. Tougher-minded kids that have had tough situations, like a Jamie Winborn, that type of kid. They're getting more of those type of players, and I think that's what this team needs, was an injection of that as much as anything, and I think they've done that.
Luke, you said something that kind of spawned a thought in my head here. I never could identify at any point in the season, before, during, who their leaders were. I mean, I think C.J. Taylor might have been the closest to it, but when you're a safety and you're hurt half the year, it's probably hard to lead. I think maybe there's something in all that you just said that helps them going forward.
And offensively, specifically, you said a defensive player there, Chris. Offense, you got to score, man. I mean, you have to. I'm not saying Vandy's got to score 35, 40 a game, but they got to score, and the offense has to be better. And so you need leaders on offense. Can Nate Johnson be a leader? If it ends up being Pavia, because we know Vanderbilt quarterbacks struggle to stay healthy, can one of those receivers, the offensive line, offensive leaders, I think, have to emerge for this team to do what they think they can do. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. But that's pretty much all the mailbag. I think I bounced around a lot there.
We had a lot of fun today, didn't we, guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That was only an hour.
How many days till baseball? We got 14, 13?
Yeah, I can't wait to get out there. I've not been able to. We'll probably try to have a baseball podcast or two coming up. My schedule right now with Southeastern 14 is just wall to wall.
Yeah, I've got a big season preview coming out Friday morning with a lot of info on kind of depth chart stuff and some of Corbin's quotes. The weather was great yesterday, and being able to see Corbs and Carter Holton and RJ Austin spoke, and it just kind of felt like baseball a little bit. It probably won't last for too long, but the spring is near.
Watch your baseball, eat your ice cream, do your laundry, donate to the collective. Don't get hurt in an accident. If you do, we know who you should call. And that's also the same if you need a government contract. It's been a miserable few years of this. And it's just been hard to know what to say. Like, you want to warn people of the train wreck that's coming, and you wish people would pay attention to the warning signs. You wish the adults in the room would take a little bit more control. And really, I think you wish the school would serve the people it's supposed to be serving. And this just gotten so far off track. I mean, it's been hard to keep it in. It really has. I get angry when I see the lengths that people will go to keep their jobs and not to do them, and when people get caught in the middle. And I'm not here to serve the school. I'm here to serve the fans. And every time you see something like Saturday, it just upsets you, because I know how many people are putting in time and money and energy for something that was really kind of never going to work in the first place. I don't know. I hope this is the year. It's an election year in our country. Everybody's really polarized. We need some unity. And one way, you got fans in the stands. You got some that are blue and some that are red. But one thing that brings everybody together, when you're in the stands and you're next to your neighbor, and your ideology might be completely different than theirs, but when Tyron Lawrence hits a buzzer beater and wins a game or whatever it is, all that goes away. All that goes away. People are high-fiving each other. They're celebrating. You've got a chance to bring unity. They're just doing the things that everybody else does to create a good product. And I don't see effort enough on part of the school. I know facilities and no NIL, but I still think from the top down, I don't know an organization that survives with horrible leadership. I mean, name me one anywhere. And I just continue to look at the school going in the same directions year after year after year. I don't know. I hope that something changes. I hope that there's a straw that breaks the camel's back somewhere, that finally somebody in charge of things looks up and says, hey, look, we have to make a complete and clean break from the past. Otherwise, you see what is going to happen. Hope somebody over there's got the guts to do that.
I was just going to say that if that person's out there, there'll be some happy Vandy fans. If not, we're just going to get the same old. But for now, I think fans could use a trip to Omaha. That would probably help a lot.
You talk about what is in front of you. That's what our job to do on this is.
Yeah.
And I hope that we get new material. But until some things change, but I'll tell you this, I can't be doing this podcast in 5 years if it's still the same. I can't do it anymore. But the school writes the script, and the material will still be the same until somebody's got the guts to step in and change it. And that's where we are. All right. Thanks to Billy and Luke for joining me today. Thanks for listening. Thanks to our sponsors. I'm Chris Lee. This has been the Vandy Sports Podcast presented by Anchor Impact.